Hi folks, I'm Johnny and welcome to The Oddest. This is one of the most baffling mysteries I've ever came across. Take the Somerton man case and the Isdal woman case and combine them both and you'll be somewhere in the same ballpark. This is like something out of a spy crime novel. It was a warm summer evening in Oslo back in 1995, and the receptionist at the luxurious Oslo Plaza Hotel, Evie Gertsen, was going about her business as usual. But then something caught her attention. The credit limit of a Belgian couple, Jennifer and Louis Fergate, staying in room 2805, had been exceeded by quite a margin. Sensing something was off, Gertsen sent a message to the room on the 28th floor. The TV screen in the room flashed with the message: "Please contact the cashier." Within moments, someone pressed the OK button on the remote control to acknowledge the message. As it turned out, the Fergates had been staying in one of the hotel's most expensive rooms, which cost 1,845 kroner per night. Evie Gertsen noticed that two similar messages had already been sent to that room, and the couple had been there for 3 nights without paying a penny. And to top it off, the woman who had signed in as Jennifer Fergate was only listed as 21 years old. Something fell off. The receptionist called housekeeping, only to find out that no one had cleaned room 2805 since Thursday. For the past 2 days, a do not disturb sign had been hanging on the door, just adding to this mystery. As the receptionist's unease grew, she decided to alert hotel security. Espen Nass, a 25-year-old security guard working this side gig while he was studying, was on duty that night. He took the elevator up to the 28th floor and arrived at the door of room 2805 at 7:50 p.m. He knocked, and then Nass's heart was racing as he remembered that there were 2 people staying in that room. He quickly stepped back, finding cover behind a small protrusion in the corridor, unsure of what to do next. If someone had been shot, there could be another person in that room with a weapon. He had a 2-way radio, but he didn't want to broadcast the details to the whole staff and just cause a panic. After a brief moment of contemplation, he decided to head down to the reception and inform the head of security whilst dialling the police. Nass was concerned about the safety of the guests in room 2805, but when he asked the police about the occupants, they had no record of their names. The head of security arrived and took the elevator up to the 28th floor. Approaching the door of room 2805, he knocked once, waited, knocked again, and then once more. It was now 8:04 p.m. and the room had been unwatched for 15 minutes. The head of security took out his keycard and cautiously unlocked the door. He noticed that the door was double locked from the inside, indicating that only security staff could get access to the room and not other employees. He opened the door slightly and immediately detected a strong, acrid smell. As he peered into the room, he saw a woman laying on the bed in an unusual position, with her arms raised and chest motionless. The room was dark and a curtain was fluttering. He shouted, hoping for a response, but there was none. He quickly made the smart decision not to enter the room and he retreated into the corridor. There he found a telephone and contacted the authorities, but it took another half hour before police would arrive. So, there's a woman laying on the bed, staring at the ceiling with a massive hole in her forehead. She must have died instantly, and there's a lot of blood. She's holding a 9mm Browning pistol in her right hand, which is resting on her chest. The television is still on, and the room is pretty neat. There's not much luggage around, and no indication that anyone else was staying in that room. Even before the crime scene tech showed up, a report is sent to the cops, and they're thinking, it's probably suicide. The investigation goes on all night. Both key cards are still in the room and the door was double locked from the inside. The window's open, but it's 28 floors up and there's no indication anyone else was involved. So it's pretty clear what happened. According to the crime scene report, it's overwhelmingly likely that the woman took her own life. The hotel's internal report says that it's 99.9% certain that this was the case. It seems like the case is pretty much wrapped up. But there's a couple of things that the police noticed during their investigation that evening. First, the labels on the woman's clothes have been cut off and removed, which is a bit odd. And secondly, there doesn't seem to be anyone related to her. The Belgian police looked into it and found out that there was no one named Jennifer or Louis Fergate, which is the name that she was going by. So it seems like all the information about her identity is false, which is definitely suspicious. At first it seemed like an open and shut case of suicide, but it quickly turned into a real nightmare for investigators. The young woman had given a fake name, and all the labels had been removed from her clothes. There was nothing in the room that could identify her. There was no passport, no wallet, no money, no credit card, no handbag, no driver's license or keys. She didn't even have any toiletries or makeup, just an almost empty bottle of men's cologne. It was as if someone had gone out of their way to remove anything that could identify her. But the question was, did she do that all herself before taking her life? Or did someone else remove everything? Even the fake name that she had used was confusing. The hotel had registered her as Jennifer Fergate, but she had signed Fergate twice. And where was the man whose name she had used, Louis Fergate? Was he real? Or was he just fictitious, as she was? It was all very mysterious. It's possible that someone else killed this woman and made it look like suicide by placing the gun in her hand. But the gun itself didn't give detectives any clues. The serial number of the Browning 9mm semi-automatic pistol had been professionally removed. Not just ground off, but etched away with acid. The technicians at CRIPOS, the National Criminal Investigation Service, were only able to recover some of the number, certainly not enough to identify the gun. All they could determine was that it had been made in Belgium in 1990 or in 1991. Jennifer Fergate had fired 2 shots, with the first one being a test shot, fired through a pillow and into the mattress. The investigators thought that she might have used the pillow as a makeshift silencer when she was testing the weapon. But why would she need to do that if she was just planning on committing suicide? The second bullet entered through her forehead, then exited out the back of her skull, taking a detour through the bed sheets and mattress before ending up on the concrete floor below. The gun was still locked and loaded, with 1 bullet already in the chamber and 7 more waiting to be fired. Plus, Jennifer brought along an extra stash of 25 bullets in a black briefcase. All that ammo and not a single useful thing in the briefcase. The autopsy report didn't tell us much either. Although she claimed to be 21, experts thought she looked more like 30. She had blue eyes, short dark hair, and she weighed around 67 kilos, and she stood 159 centimetres tall. Her fingerprints didn't match any in the Interpol database, but she did have some fancy gold and porcelain dental work, the kind that you would see in the United States or maybe even Switzerland or Germany. The woman's first call to book the hotel room was made on Monday, May 22nd, but it's not clear from the police documents what specific dates she requested to stay. Then, on Wednesday, May 31st, the woman called the hotel again to change her arrival date. She said that she would be arriving that evening with another person. When she checked into the hotel at 10:44 p.m, it was during the hotel's busiest time, but somehow she managed to check in without showing any form of identification. The receptionist ticked the box on the check-in form where the guest is supposed to write their passport number, but nothing was ever written down. Even after the police review of airline passenger lists from that night, nothing was found. All these unanswered questions only made the Oslo police more determined to solve this case. Assistant Chief of Police Gunnar Larsson even assigned 5 experienced murder investigators to work on it. The mysterious circumstances surrounding the Plaza woman left the Oslo police with more questions than answers. Why did she book into a room for 2 people when she was clearly there alone? How did she manage to check in without providing any identification? Where did she obtain the illegal firearm and bring so much ammunition if her only intention was to take her own life? The police had several theories to explore, including the possibility that the woman was involved in a drug operation that went awry, or that she was working for a secret intelligence agency. It was also suggested that she might be a professional hitwoman or a high-end escort. However, it was equally plausible that she was simply a depressed individual who came to Oslo with the intention of ending her own life. Despite numerous leads, none of the theories seem to provide a clear answer to this mystery. The woman was even checked out in connection with a mafia case in Italy, but that was also a dead end. The investigation into the Plaza woman's identity and motives would prove to be a complex and challenging task for the Oslo police. According to the hotel staff, the Plaza woman was fluent in English and German. However, there weren't many sightings of her around the hotel. The hotel's digital records revealed that she rarely left or entered that room. It seemed likely that she had planned to take her own life. The detectives discovered that she mostly kept herself in the room, which indicated that she was getting ready to die. After a year of investigation, the police threw in the towel. None of the leads that they pursued brought them any closer to uncovering the truth. The Plaza woman remained just as much of an enigma as the day she was discovered. Finally, on Wednesday, June 26, 1996, almost 13 months after her death, the Plaza woman was laid to rest in an unmarked grave at Oslo's Vester Gravlund Cemetery. Let's take a wee look at all the puzzling facts around this case. All but one of the tags and brand labels had been completely removed from her clothes. Some snipped off stitch by stitch, others were just cut or sliced away. The police didn't have much to go on when it came to identifying her personal items. All they found was a label on a grey blazer left in the closet of room 2805. This blazer was from a German fashion brand called René Lizard, and it looked like the label was intentionally made impossible to remove without damaging the lining of the actual garment. The police were able to trace the blazer back to Germany, but that's where the trail goes cold. They also found a turquoise travel bag made by a German company called Travelite. The logo was also impossible to remove without cutting the actual bag, and it didn't provide any useful information to the investigators. It's not uncommon for people to remove clothing tags that irritate their skin, but this was more than that. This was a deliberate and systematic removal of any identifying information. Where were her passport, wallet, credit cards and money? It's strange that there was not a single coin or banknote to suggest where she had been. The only cash tied to her was a 50 kroner note that she had given as a tip the night before she died. She had no handbag, glasses, house or car keys, sunglasses, reading material, handkerchief or lipstick. The photos of her reveal a beautiful and fashionable young woman who clearly cared about her appearance. Why didn't she have any of her personal care items with her? No toothbrush, no makeup bag. The only thing in the hotel room that belonged to her was a bottle of men's cologne, but who knows, maybe she just liked the smell. On the baggage shelf in the room, there's a cotton sweater and a long black leather jacket that looks pretty stylish. In the closet, there's a sleeveless blouse, a grey blazer and a trench coat. Her travel bag is a pretty turquoise green colour, and inside are some black pantyhose, a black silk top and 3 blonde coloured bras. She was wearing all black when she died. Shoes, stockings, a bra and some silk shorts, and a thigh-length cotton jacket. But why was she missing all of her other personal belongings? Many people have noted that it's odd that Jennifer Fergate didn't pack more clothing items such as trousers, skirts, or an extra pair of shoes. I mean, it's natural to forget something when you pack, but it seems unusual to pack only one pair of shorts and no other bottoms. Additionally, while Jennifer had several jackets, a blouse and a sweater and 4 bras, there were no sign of a toiletry bag or any other way for her to carry her belongings. It's unclear how all of these items could have fit into that one small turquoise travel bag. It raises questions about whether she had other bags or suitcases that haven't been found. It's difficult to piece together the details of her trip because there were so few witnesses who actually saw Jennifer during her stay at the hotel. It's possible that Jennifer Fergate got rid of some of her clothing and suitcases before she took her own life. Alternatively, someone else may have taken them. However, there is no concrete evidence to support either of these theories. It's unclear whether the police searched the hotel for any clothing or tags that may have been thrown away or inspected rubbish bins or containers. The police documents do not provide any information on this matter. The last known sighting of Jennifer Fergate was by Kristen Anderson, who was in charge of room service. She received a call from the Plaza woman on Friday evening, 24 hours before her death. Anderson remembered receiving a generous tip of 50 kroner, a significant amount at the time. She also assumed that the Plaza woman was a flight attendant. A later interview of hotel staff in 2017 by an independent investigator added just more strangeness to this case. The member of the hotel staff said that they noticed in her room that she had a suitcase with wheels on it, the exact same type that a flight attendant would use. Many airline crews stayed at the plaza. It was easy to spot them, based on clothes and luggage. The ladies wore dark suits and their hair was put up. They had very little luggage and didn't spread it around the room like holidaymakers often do. I automatically thought of a flight attendant from British Airways when I went into her, because of her suit and wheeled suitcase. I think it was a smaller, rolling type of suitcase. They were not very common at the time. It was typically airline crews that had them. That's probably why I thought she was a flight attendant. One important detail from Kristen Anderson's witness statement was that the plaza woman was wearing a dark blue or black suit with a knee-length skirt, which was not present at the time of her death. Anderson also described the room as completely untouched during her police interview, giving the impression that the woman had just checked in. However, Anderson did not mention the suitcase in her initial statement, and when asked about it later, she said that she felt bombarded with very specific questions and she only answered what was asked of her. Vedis Valo, a room steward at the plaza, was responsible for the cleaning of the rooms on the 28th floor on that Thursday, the 1st of June, the day after the plaza woman's check-in. She cleaned room 2805 along with a young co-worker in training. Whilst waiting for her co-worker, Valo noticed a pair of shoes under the baggage shelf, which is interesting because when the plaza woman was found dead in the same room 2 days later, she was wearing a pair of black Italian shoes and no other shoes were found in that room. If Jennifer had left that room barefoot when it was being cleaned on the Thursday, it means that she either had an extra pair of shoes or the pair of shoes under the baggage shelf was missing when she was found dead. When asked why she paid particular attention to these shoes, Valo replied, "Because I thought they were nice. I wanted shoes like that myself. I looked inside them and checked the name so I could remember it. But today, of course, I'm not able to recall the name." Valo was then shown a photo of the shoes that Jennifer was wearing when she was found. No, those shoes I wouldn't have given a second glance. No, these were finer, more colourful shoes. If what Valo was saying is accurate, that would mean that there were a second pair of shoes in that room, shoes that were missing at the time of her death. None of the clues the police investigated led to new information about where Jennifer Fergate came from. On her left arm, the plaza woman wore a bulky Citizen Aqualand diving watch. The investigators discovered that the diving watch worn by the plaza woman was about 3 years old at the time of her death, having been produced in January 1992. However, the manufacturer was unable to provide information on where the watch had been sold. The batteries in the watch, which were manufactured by the Swiss battery factory Renata, provided some hope for the investigation. The batteries were all manufactured in December of 1994 and were delivered to wholesalers and retailers in December of 1994 and January 1995. While the factory made 1 million batteries per month, each battery bore the inscription W395, which is often used by watchmakers to date battery changes. Unfortunately, with limited internet technology available in 1995, the police were unable to track down the watchmaker who replaced the battery and left the W395 inscription on it. The black attaché case that was found with the cartridges and potentially the pistol did not have any markings to indicate its place of manufacture. However, it had a small emblem of a shiny metal animal on it. Initially thought to be an elephant, a closer look revealed it to be a buffalo. This emblem belongs to Braun Buffel, a German luxury leather goods company that was established in 1869. With this information, the manufacturer of the attaché case has been identified. The manufacturer could only confirm that the case was made between 1986 and 1991. However, they were unable to provide any other information that could be helpful. The weapon, a Browning 9mm pistol, was no help to the police either. See, its serial number had been etched away with acid. The Browning is a powerful semi-automatic weapon. When a shot is fired, the next round is automatically pushed into the firing chamber. The magazine holds 9 bullets. The pistol is manufactured in large numbers. It's reliable, often used by the police and the military, and obviously it's popular with criminals. Experts at the laboratory of Kripos, Norway's National Crime Investigation Service, managed to recover parts of the serial number. The removal was done very professionally, the report says. The Kripos technicians found 2 rows of numbers and letter combinations imprinted over each other. On each row, they managed to recover 6 digits or letters, but remained still 3 characters short of a complete serial number. So here's the deal. The gun that was used in the case was produced at a Browning factory in Belgium, but when the Norwegian police asked for help, the Belgians couldn't give them much beyond confirming that it was made in either 1990 or 1991. The problem was that there were around 6,000 serial numbers across 3 different weapon registries, but they weren't digitised, so there was no way for the police to search for them all manually. Anyway, you might be wondering if there's any chance of finding the gun now, with all the fancy technology that we have these days. Well, here's the kicker. It turns out that the gun was sent away for destruction. And that's not the only thing that went missing from this case. It's a shame to hear that all the evidence in the Plaza Woman case was tossed out by an assistant chief of police just 2 months after her burial. That includes all of her clothes, leather jacket, shoes, briefcase, everything. The only items that survived were a few valuables like her diving watch and some gold rings, which were sold at a police auction. Thankfully, there is hope for this case yet. The current Assistant Chief of Police has appointed an experienced officer, Lennart Kardalen, who has been a cop for almost 4 decades and has worked as a homicide investigator, watch commander, and in various leadership roles, so he's well experienced. Hopefully, he'll be able to shed some light on this mysterious case. Pretty quickly, the detective comes back with some good news. He found the gun. So apparently, the gun was sent away to be destroyed, but the forensics team kept it in a glass case. It was kept for a training aid to show as an example of the type of acid removal that were used to remove the serial numbers. So they brought in senior engineer Tommy Nyberg to work his magic and see if he could recover more of the serial number on the gun. He pulled out all the stops and tried some new methods that weren't available back in 1995. He used electrochemical etching to try and bring out the missing digits, carefully putting etching fluid on the metal, waiting, and trying again. He examined the pistol closely under a stereo microscope and twisted and turned it in the light, but unfortunately, it was all for nothing. Even after leaving it to sit overnight, they still couldn't get any closer to finding out who this weapon belonged to. The forensics team managed to lift several fingerprints from the crime scene in room 2805 shortly after Jennifer Fergate was found dead. They discovered prints on 3 empty soda bottles taken from the minibar, as well as on a glass, a bag of potato chips, and a bottle of cologne. All the fingerprints matched those of the Plaza Woman. So what about the gun and the ammo clip? Well, those were processed by forensics, sure, but both were totally clean. No fingerprints. So it seems that the Plaza Woman, if she was indeed the shooter, had to fire 2 shots. The first shot was fired into the mattress using the pillow as a silencer. Before that, she or someone else must have loaded the clip and inserted it into the pistol's grip. After the test shot, she must have turned the gun around, changed her grip, and fired the fatal shot, as she was found with her thumb on the trigger and her fingers around the back of the grip. It's quite a puzzle because there were no fingerprints found on the gun. According to the police, finding a culprit's fingerprints on a firearm is usually only possible in movies. It's a mystery how Jennifer Fergate managed to conceal her true identity so effectively. Was it pure luck or careful planning? Did she have help in erasing any traces of her past? And why hasn't anyone come forward to search for her in over 2 decades? According to Jennifer's autopsy report, she was around 30 years old at the time of her death. If she were alive today, she would be in her mid to late 40s or early 50s. It's highly probable that her family members, former partners, colleagues, acquaintances are still alive, yet none of them have come forward or reported her missing, or made any attempt to locate her. One of the few pieces of concrete information we have about Jennifer is the registration form that she filled out at the Plaza Hotel. However, every single detail on it was fabricated, including her name and the name of her supposed travel companion. The city she listed was Verlaine, Belgium. Yep, that does exist, but the postal code that she provided doesn't. Verlaine is a small town situated in the eastern part of the Wallonia region, approximately 20 kilometres away from Liège. However, the phone numbers that Jennifer provided turned out to be fake also. The area code that she gave didn't match any area in Verlaine. Furthermore, the 6-digit local number was valid, but not associated with the area code listed. To investigate further, a Belgian journalist was recruited in 1996 to call both numbers, but neither subscriber knew anything about Jennifer. Even the street address she provided was found to be made up. Although Jennifer claimed to work for a company called Cerbis, the company just didn't exist. I mean, there was a similar sounding Belgian company called Cerberus. It is certainly possible that the Plaza woman had some knowledge of Belgium, either from personal experience or research. The fact that she provided a real area code and knew the postal code structure suggests that she may have been familiar with the country's telecommunications system. However, it's impossible to say for certain what her level of knowledge was, or whether she had help in planning her trip. As for the phone numbers she dialed, it's unclear why she would have called two almost identical numbers in Belgium. It's possible that she was trying to reach someone specific and had written down the numbers incorrectly. Alternatively, she may have been using the numbers as a cover to create the impression that she was conducting business as usual or trying to reach someone in Belgium. Without more information, it's impossible to say for sure. So basically, we're trying to figure out what the Plaza woman actually wrote down for her address before she died. The Norwegian police initially told their Belgian counterparts that her address was on Rue de Stede, but the more investigators look at her handwritten note, the more they are convinced that Stede isn't what she wrote. It might not be that important since the address turned out to be false anyway, but it could be useful to know what she actually wrote down. In Verlaine, there are no streets that start with STE, and only two that start with STA, Rue de la Station and Rue d'Estange. So what was she doing in Oslo, and why did she choose a luxury hotel? The Oslo Plaza was the ultimate hotel experience in the Nordic countries, both in terms of luxury and location. With its 37 stories towering 117 metres into the sky, this 5-star hotel was officially opened by Norway's King Olav V in 1990. Over the years, the Plaza had played host to numerous international celebrities, high-profile guests, and even heads of state. Jennifer Fergate, too, had booked a business class room at the hotel for a whopping 1,845 kroner per night. That's equivalent to almost 3,100 kroner, or $330 in today's currency. We're not sure if she had planned to die there, or if she had something else in mind. So, after discovering the dead woman, the room was left unattended for about 15 minutes before the first police unit arrived. It took them about an hour to establish that she was shot and dead on the bed. The body was collected by a hearse at 2:40 AM, and by 4:10 AM, the mattress and bed were completely removed from the room. Finally, at 5 AM, the police finished their work and released the room to the hotel. The hotel's head of security reported that the police were 99.9% certain that it was a suicide. That brings us back to the most recent investigation. So, back in 1996, the investigators made sure to put a wooden box on top of the coffin of the Plaza woman buried in the cemetery. They knew that there might come a day where they would need to dig up the coffin to give the woman a new burial or to get more information about her. Fast forward to now, the investigators are back at the cemetery, not to bury the woman, but to try and identify her. It's been 20 years since she was buried there, so they're not sure if there's even going to be enough DNA left to sample. Luckily, the workers at the cemetery were able to find what they were looking for: bones and teeth. The material was then brought to the forensic lab at the Norwegian Institute of Public Health, where forensic pathologist Per Hoff Olsen got to work on pre-processing it. Biologist Erik Bergseth then crushed the bone pieces that had been cleaned with chlorine solution. They had a nice profile. The hard work and efforts of the investigators had finally paid off. However, there is still a long way to go. Simply having a DNA profile is not enough without a reference to compare it with. In addition to this, the current data does not provide much insight into the woman's ethnicity. More analysis needs to be conducted to gather further clues. So, it seems with the independent investigations being carried out and the revival of this case that at some point in the near future we might actually get the answers that we need. I'm confident that science will prevail. I'll leave a link in the description to the independent investigation being carried out by a passionate and capable team. In the meantime, I want to thank you all sincerely for taking the time to watch this video. It was a long one for sure, but that's what happens when you end up diving down the rabbit hole, I guess. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Tell someone that you love them. And remember, no matter what, keep smiling.